We continue to the next keynote. The sustainable leader or sustainable leaders. Peter Koning is an agile leadership expert at ProAwareness. He has been working for 15 years on this topic. And the last 6 years he's a coach advisor for large and middle organizations, especially for the management. Besides that, he's the hoofddocent, head teacher, is that? Expert teacher, the hoofddocent of the Agile Leadership Expert Program, which is an 8-month program, which is a combination of meetings, on-the-job coaching for people who are in a leadership position and they are confronted with an agile transformation, agile way of working, and they say, well, what does it ask for me? So instead of sending them to a course for two days or something, Peter is leading the Agile Leadership Expert Program for a period of 8 months with certain periods and contact moments over there. And by the way, he is the author of the book, in Dutch, A Toolkit for Agile Leaders. In English, A Toolkit for Agile Leaders. However, the English version is not yet released, but Peter promised that it will be released after the summer this year. So before Christmas, somewhere between Christmas and summer, the book is also available in English. But I won't. I will stop now with making easy jokes about this because Peter only has 20 minutes. I would like to ask you to give a warm hand for Peter on sustainable leaders. Peter Koning.
Hi, good afternoon, good morning still, in a few minutes, afternoon everybody. Let's try that again. Hi everybody. Great. So, sustainable leaders, that's a pretty strange theme for the day of today. Because the world is accelerating faster and faster and new technologies emerge with an even more rapid pace. So is it even possible to still somehow be sustainable? Or are we just tossed back and forth with the wind, not knowing what might come at us and hoping to survive the waves of today? Or is it still possible with all that agile hype and new technology to somehow lead organizations in a sustainable multiple years from now? We thought about it with the committee to organize this today, this event, and I have a few practical tips for you how you can, as a leader, and also influence your boss of your manager or your not yet convinced of agile manager. Who has those people not yet convinced of agile managers? Only a few, that saves a lot of time. So how can you, while the world around us is going at an even more rapid pace and being more and more unpredictable with new technologies, law and regulations, new possibilities, how can you still lead organizations in what I call somehow a lighthouse way? What is the sustainable factor in organizations even when you look a few years from now, when the new technologies will probably even be more quicker and new competitors rise even faster? And I think there are a few things that we can do. And I will use the metaphor of a lighthouse, although the lighthouse on its technology is a bit outdated. I think we can use a lot of the lighthouse metaphor. And one of the first things we can learn from this company, I don't know if you recognize the logo, but this company was founded in 1997. And they did something called DVD by email. DVD by mail, so not by email, but by postal mail. So you could order DVDs, and one of the next days, those DVDs would enter your mailbox. You could open it, put it in your DVD player. You had those things in those days. Did you remember that? Those discs? Yeah, remember it? And then you can watch them, put them back in the envelope, send them back. And this company still exists, although they don't do it like this anymore. Who recognizes the logo? Anyone? What did you say? Netflix, yes. So Netflix is there already for 20 years. And why? And I think we can learn something from them from a sustainable factor. And that is that for 20 years, they still do the one thing exactly the same. And that is the promise towards the customers. They still have the same customer impact as they founded 20 years ago. That is, they give us a nice moment of relax, watching a nice movie with friends or with relatives or all by yourselves. And they still do that for 20 years in a row, although the technology is changing even faster and faster, and they are even by itself a disruptor in the market. They still have the same customer impact. And that is, from a lighthouse perspective, they didn't move from the position they had in the market. Like a lighthouse stands on the same rock for over 100 years. Did you know that? Lighthouses don't walk. Everybody did? Somebody? Yeah, so they are designed for a certain spot on a rock near the ocean, and they stay there for many, many years. And these organizations, so many organizations, they say, well, the new technology is not coming at us at rapid pace. We are still delivering the same customer impact over many years in a row. And also when you look at companies that went bankrupt, for example, Toys R Us, V&D, Intertoys, and many other companies, it's not that the customer impact that they deliver is changed. We still buy clothes, although nobody can buy it anymore at V&D. There are a few, well, anyhow. And we still buy toys for our kids or for ourselves, although we are likely not to buy it for pretty long at Intertoys anymore. We still need those things. And what new companies need to do is they have to use the benefit of new technologies to even make the customer impact even more easy or even better. So one of the first things that we can learn from the lighthouse metaphor is the customer impact. And my practical question to you is, as managers, coaches, consultants, product owners, project managers, how clear is it for the people around you which customer impact that you deliver? I coach organizations and they go to this Spotify something model. Hendrik Nieberg will tell more about it later today. And they work on this purpose. Do you have teams with purposes and stuff like that? Yeah? So when they are 3 months in a row, 3 months working with Agile, I ask them, and how are you doing with your purpose? And they re-look at their purpose and they say, well, we frankly don't have a clue. There is no data, there are no metrics, there is no insight on how we are doing with our purpose. And that is like telling to an Ajax player, Ajax is the building we're in currently. Yeah, Ajax, don't forget the name. Anyhow, the two Ajax players on the field are saying to each other, hey, do you know what the score is on the board? And the other Ajax player is saying, well, I've got no clue. The only thing I know is that I have a break in 15 minutes. When I go to the teams and say, how are you doing with the most important match that you have to win, which is your customer impact, and how are you doing? They say, well, I have got no clue. The only thing I know is that I have a deadline in 2 months and 2 weeks. So although we are moving towards more and more agile, the way that most of our teams are still organized is that they are focused on ball possession, number of corners, etc., all internal metrics. And I see only a few companies that are organized on customer impact, and that most of the teams know day in, day out how they are doing towards that goal and achieving that goal. So this is one of the first things, because that customer impact that you're delivering, using the new technologies and beating competitors for tomorrow, you will probably be still delivering the same customer impact in 10 years from now, because we still need something to relax on, watching movies, stuff like that. We still need financial help. We still need insurances and stuff like that. And we still need something, what we now think is cars, but need transportation to get us from A to B. Another thing that we can, that Agile promises is these teams. Do you recognize these faces? We are going to start with Agile. And then most of the teams look like this. Yeah, freedom or happiness. And many Agile coaches, I ask them, what is your responsibility? Yeah, my responsibility is the happiness of the team. So Agile coaches do a good job when they look like this. Unfortunately, although you're doing Agile or not Agile, I don't see a significant change of significance in the number of teams that are happy or not happy, because most of the teams that I encounter, they look like this. Do you recognize that? At least, perhaps the team you're in, perhaps the teams that you walk around in the organization. And one of the things is, this is a lighthouse without a light. There are no shining eyes. So the light of a lighthouse, that is the spark in the eye, the shining eyes of the people that actually deliver the customer impact. And people didn't join the company with this face. They joined the company hoping to learn, to deliver value, to learn from each other, to collaborate. But within a few days or after a few years, most of your people that work with us, they are not so much energized. That is more and more changing, happily. But still, there are many people in the organizations that don't feel energized, excited, etc. And one of the key things that I see Agile leaders make Agile leaders successful is when they look at these faces, they say, I am to blame. I, as a leader, it's my responsibility that my team doesn't look like this. So what do most Agile leaders do? They talk about it. And they talk about the things below the table, onder water, onder de waterlijn. And they are actually in a very candor, that is openhartig for the Dutch people around us, in a very candor way, saying, well, how is the trust here? Are we in it together? Are we on the same goal of everybody doing their own stuff? And are we really telling each other the whole truth and nothing but the truth? And one of the things that I see is that for those teams, it's sometimes hard to tell it to each other, but it is, at least at the beginning, a lot easier to tell it to your boss. So one of the things that I often do when I'm responsible for several teams is that I want to get those honest feedback back to me, so that I know what I can change in the environment so that people take ownership. And Google did also a study on this. Google, you know Google? No? They have big data. They have enormous data on you and on your neighbor and on your other neighbor. And they also use data for their employees. I don't know if that's healthy, but anyhow, they also use data on all their employees. And they studied what makes teams successful. What is the one thing what's the dominant thing that make teams successful and high performing? And one of the most important thing is psychological safety. And my question to you is, how much time a week do you spend on validating and improving the psychological safety of your teams? Or are you still busy with internal deadlines, improving the efficiency, reducing costs, etc.? And what I see is over and over again is that when leaders start to ask open questions on how are we doing with this psychological safety thing, the lighthouse starts to shine again. The eyes start to shine. The team starts to get a total different vibe. And Netflix, and we used an example prior, they have a mindset for high-performing teams, and that mindset has to do with a number. And I'm going to ask you to talk with your neighbor what the estimate of that number is. And they ask new leaders, and they train leaders on this mindset, and they say, how much more effective do you think, which percentage of effectiveness will a team have when they start to become high-performing and at least have psychological safety and other stuff? So is that 50% more effective, or 20%, or even more higher? So talk for a few seconds with your neighbor and do a rough estimate on the number on how much more effective is a high-performing team. All right, thank you. So what is the number that you had? Is the number 20%? Who had a number higher than 50% more effective? Please raise your hand. Yeah? Higher than 100% more effective? Only a few. 200%? 300? It's not a bidding exercise, you know. They use the number 10. 10 times more productive. So when you do that with math, it's 1,000% more productive. So imagine spending every week 2 hours with the right help from leaders, coaches, etc., to make the team more productive. What is the return on investment on that? And what we Agile coaches and consultants can learn is that it's not about freedom. Freedom is what I call overrated. Because freedom is only a minor means to an end. What you need is not teams that feel freedom, because freedom really helps. Freedom is good. But too much freedom ends up in chaos, and too little freedom ends up in frustration. So freedom is not the goal. The only goal that you have to solve is that the hierarchy makes it slow. So you have to, these high-performing teams, they can quickly deliver customer impact and use new technologies because they are not bogged down by hierarchy, by us leaders. So one of the things I'm still puzzling with is that I have chosen that my customer segment is Agile leaders, but one of the things that's still bugging in my head is that in 3 years there will be less Agile leaders than now. So I'm still doubting whether I have the right audience for my book and for my trainings. But anyhow, perhaps passion is more important than market size. So besides customer impact, one of the things that you need to make the lighthouse shine is teams with ownership. That's what I call ownership. And ownership is the next level of engagement. Ownership is really that a team feels proud, that they are proactive, that they feel that they are actually not so happy when the customer is not so happy, and that they constantly think of new ways to solve problems of today. And we have to create an environment where our teams get quickly feedback on how they are doing with the customer impact and use the collective brain powers of multiple teams to improve the customer impact. And that's one of the ways to create sustainable leadership and sustainable organizations. And my question is how much does your lighthouse shine? How many shining eyes do you have around you? And what type of leader are you that you create people that don't shine? Last topic is all about culture. And culture is perhaps in Agile terminology the most used word. Often to inspire, but mostly to blame. And in some organizations they call it a C word. It's all about the C word. Because they don't want to pronounce culture that often. And what I see is that leaders that really make a difference and that really change the local culture where they are responsible for and not starting to blame the rest of the organization and don't wait for upper managers to change, they have something unique. These successful leaders, to really lead in a new way, they feel responsible for their local culture. And how do they do that? Is that they make it very explicit what they expect from people. Because culture, you can actually change culture relatively easy. But we leaders have to know how culture works and have to start developing new skills to stop using project management, Excel and stuff like that to lead our department. But start using cultural traits, cultural tools and cultural things to do. And one of the things I often ask is, mention a few things that you think is important in your culture. And most Agile leaders come up with one of these words. Do you recognize the words? Yeah, we Agile fanatics love these words, right? But then again, I walk through these words and I ask them, so take for example craftsmanship. When I'm in one of your teams, how do I know that craftsmanship is an important trait, an important habit, an important characteristic of your culture? Yeah, I mentioned it at the beginning of the year. But we need craftsmanship, and it's and we have these nice posters on the wall, and craftsmanship is also written on it. Yeah, that won't change the team. So ask yourself the question: when you are a team member, how predominant, how clearly is it for you that craftsmanship is an important trait of culture? And is time spent on learning craftsmanship? Are highly crafted people that are also team players more rewarded than others or put on stage to help other people? And you have to make it, all these cultural traits, you can really change the culture of your department if you check whether all these things that you want are part of many meetings during 2 weekly sprints. Whether they are part of reports to know that where people are. And whether every team member can spend enough time during his 2 weekly sprint to improve these characteristics. And one of the things that I want to emphasize on changing the culture is one of the things that bogged me down for quite a few years and that I totally misunderstood, is that when you read a lot of Agile books and Agile themes, one of the things that you read a lot is these slogans, right? Yeah, leave your ego at home, or There is no room for ego. Do you recognize these slogans? Yeah, a few of you? Perhaps they are already getting less and less in organizations. But I think that ego, in a balanced way, is very important for self-managing teams. Because ego, in a right way, makes people stubborn. Stubborn. Do you know that stubbornness is crucial for self-managing teams? Are you judging people that, hey, you're stubborn, it's a good job? Why do you need stubborn people? Because stubborn people, they stand for their quality. They stand for their craft. And they will never be forced to a deadline where quality is undermined, where quality is impossible to reach. Who of you went to a garage lately for your mother-in-law car or something like that, or something for the relatives of your partner? Do you? Yeah? I tried it lately, last. And I said, well, I went to a garage and I said, could you fix this car? It's for my mother-in-law, so I need new battery, new brakes, and a new oil refreshments, but I only got 50 euros to spend. Yeah, it's for my mother-in-law, so please do it quickly. What does a proper garage say to you? Oh, when it's for your mother-in-law, we are happy to do it. Now, a good garage is stubborn on craftsmanship and quality and teamwork and say, well, no, we will never do that. Yeah, but the customer is king, right? So why don't you do it? Because I'm not going to be bogged down to deliver low quality. And that's a good way of stubbornness that you need from self-managing teams. When self-managing teams are forced to do a deadline which is impossible to reach, they say no. Yeah, it's their right to do that and their responsibility to do it. And they need a good amount of ego for that. So one of my slogans is, in cultural attributes, is I love people with egos. Why? Because they have character, they have charisma, they are stubborn, they know what they want. But the ego should always serve the team and the customers. And do you have that conversation? Because highly egoed people with this balance will also deliver a huge amount of teamwork and also deliver awesome products to our users. And I want to use another example from Ajax to explain that. Who of you know this person? Please, a little bit louder. Mention his name. Tadic. And he is the informal leader. From my perspective, when I watch Ajax and when I listen to a few experts on the topic, he is the informal leader. And his ego, when it's balanced to win matches and to serve the team, his ego is actually helping to win matches. And do you, as an Agile leader, when you go to self-managing teams, do you know who are your informal leaders? And especially with those informal leaders, they should be representatives of the culture. And have conversations with those informal leaders on which culture do we want to locally create and do they fit that level. And then when I look at the lighthouse metaphor again, a lighthouse is placed on a rock, everybody knows that, but the rock is placed near the ocean. Why? Because that's where they need to be. So that's the environment, that's the culture where they live. And we can build sustainable companies, we as leaders can build sustainable leadership when we abide to these rules. We have to get a clear picture on what means a healthy culture. So that our teams take ownership, that the light in the lighthouse starts to shine. And they are focused on customer impact, because customer impact with the rapid change of technologies and new competitors emerging, your customer impact is the rock where you're placed on as a company. And it's my passion to help and coach Agile leaders with this mindset and to make them that they can grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Peter, I have a question for you. Agile leadership, being an Agile leader, is that trainable? Is that teachable? Is that coachable? Or if you have a leader who doesn't have it in him, forget it, not possible?
I hope the first, but I'm almost to say that there are people that meet the last category.
What do we do with them?
Yeah, it's not up to me to decide, but I think time will be our friend. because those new people won't work for them, or they lead organizations that are not sustainable. I think it's more trainable than we think, but one of the important things that those Agile leaders have to do is they have to start thinking with their stomach, with their feeling. And most leaders become those leaders with their mind, with their IQ, and they have to lead with their emotional intelligence more and more. And when people are afraid for that, or when that's blocked, it is a hard time to learn.
Thank you very much, Peter. I know that you will be around for the whole day. So if you have questions for Peter, don't hesitate to approach him. Also, if you have a copy of his book and you would like to have it signed by him, Peter's happy to do so. If you don't have a copy of his book, you can buy them over there. So this was the commercial break for that sake. Peter, thank you very much. I think I will leave this here because the most important word that you say is all about customer impact. That's all what counts. That's in the end of the day where we judge that. And being here on the stage, the best way to measure customer impact is by a warm applause. Thank you very much.